question.
Oh well.
How would you define sexuality education?
Honestly, I don't feel like we were really educated that much when we were like year 9s or year 10s.
It's the education of everything sexual.
Can someone give me a definition? Stuff about sexuality, like gender and sex stuff.
Educating people on, I guess, everything around sex, the human body, as well as other non-physical things like relationships and things like sexual consent.
Learning about bodies and how it works and how to protect yourself from stuff.
Education based on sexuality, so this like ranges from, you know, contraception, puberty, healthy relationships and such.
How long ago did you learn sexuality education?
Year 10.
Year 10?
Year 10.
Sexuality education was in about year 9, year 10, so a while ago.
Year 8.
I'm year 13 now, I learnt it in year 9 and that's it.
Year 10?
Do you remember what you were taught in sexuality education?
We learnt about the, I guess the girl parts and how, we also learnt about sex in general as well as contraception methods.
Not much. I remember my teacher saying, I like sex ed as much as a cat likes water, and that was pretty much the outline of what we learned. I did not learn much.
Not really. I grew up with 2 older brothers, so I kind of always learned everything from them, not necessarily from class.
How to put a condom on a wooden stick. I don't know, I'm learning about a lot of straight sex.
Well, we were kind of taught like how to behave in a certain manner.
Considering that everyone is at a different age when sexuality education is most relevant, how relevant was sexuality education to you when you were taught it?
I think because I was in year 10 and I was like 14 or 15, and obviously then I wasn't even like active, so like I didn't understand it.
Well, I think we learned in about year 10 and I was still kind of like, I was just a kid. For me, it wasn't really that relevant at the time, but it is in terms of having sex ed that young, like it should be that young because, I mean, you need to accommodate for everyone.
If everyone's changing at different times, at different speeds, then it's going to be relevant for some people at different times.
I think it probably would have been more beneficial for me to have had it like a little bit earlier, but even then, as I said, it all comes down to it being very like cookie cutter, and like if you don't fit into this, then
It would be beneficial to have it kind of constantly throughout the years.
Really relevant. Entering high school, you're like, I guess at that age where, I don't know, people are getting their periods.
Do you think your maturity towards sexuality education affected your learning and understanding of the topic?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, being year 10 at the time, you always are going to be very immature about that kind of stuff.
Yes, you're very immature in year 10. It's like you didn't take any of it in.
Personally, I'm very immature, so when I first started learning about it, I was laughing at a lot of immature things. I probably didn't take on as much as I should have because I was like laughing at it, I guess.
Everyone was really weird about it at that age because you know what year 10's like. Everyone's finding it so exciting because you haven't really talked about it until now and it's like so exotic. Wow, sex. I guess the maturity did affect it because people didn't really take it as seriously as you would have wanted them to do. Like kids were just sitting there and like, oh yes, this is very serious. The girls that would probably more needed the education were less mature, I think. So maybe they didn't take the information as strongly to heart as they should have.
Yeah, it sort of did because like I wanted to learn about it because it would be helpful for me in the future.
In what ways has sexuality education impacted your life? Was it beneficial, and have you ever been able to call upon your knowledge?
No. I guess just because it didn't go into so much detail.
Yeah, I do think it's been beneficial.
Somewhat.
no. I had a really useless teacher, so it's very like cookie cutter mold. Like there's one way you get taught and that's it, and if you don't fit into that mold, then like, you know, go find out about it somewhere else kind of thing seems to be the general message, which isn't a good message.
Not really. Like the knowledge that I have now, I didn't learn that, the majority of what I know from my experiences at school.
Do you think there is a stigma associated with sexuality education?
I don't want my kids learning about sex that early because it's going to encourage them to have sex. But the truth is, kids are already encouraged to have sex with social media and things like that. You should have sexuality education, understanding of contraceptives to make sex more safe. Like, that's much more important than just pretending that sex isn't a thing. There shouldn't be that stigma.
Definitely is like a taboo surrounding it, like you don't want to bring it up. I think it needs to be more openly discussed because you really get nowhere if you're not talking about it.
Yes, because at that age we're still kind of immature. As you go older, you kind of realise that it's just a way of life. I think it's kind of natural, the stigma. Not that I like it, but I think even I stigmatised sexual education in the sense that I was probably immature as well.
I feel like the teachers, they don't necessarily know how far to go.
I reckon there is a stigma in like year 10 because if you are too interested in the subject or you know a lot of it, you kind of associate it with like the people who are, you know?
Not really, because like in sex ed we did learn about like how couples can be black and white, how couples can be gay. It kind of just showed us that this stigma shouldn't exist.
You could break it by introducing it where people are actually more mature. Maybe a couple of periods like year 11, 12, 13 where it's more relevant as well.
Do you think it would be beneficial for sexuality education to be reinforced up until year 13? And if so, why? Do you believe this topic is more relevant to you now than it was in year 9 and 10?
Yes, because then that means like our knowledge is maintained throughout our years as we develop and grow.
Yes, it's more relevant to you at year 13 compared to year 10.
Up to at least year 12, but year 13 would be actually maybe even better because sometimes we forget stuff, and like if it's repetitive then we will remember it.
Yeah, continuous teaching.
Definitely a necessity in terms of education.
Yeah, totally.
It probably is more relevant because I'm at a more mature age, but I think it's more important to know it at the younger age that I learned it, because that's when you're like entering high school, you're kind of finding yourself as a person.
The thing is, like, in year 10 we had it at a minimum. Like, we hit it for maybe a week, I think, that we talked about sex, and then like, wow, you just go on with your life and you forget that it ever happened. You're at that age at year 10, it's important to tell them what they have available for their options, but when you go to year 13 some girls would have forgotten, so I'm sure like it's better to have education in place to educate girls about contraceptives and about sex, because it is more relevant then and it will probably be better, but it's also important to have it at that young age as well, to as a kind of preventative method to make sure more girls are safe.